A big problem with college football is that we just can't play enough games to truly find out which team is the best. So in today's video, I decided to see what would happen if Alabama's football team played a schedule of 31 games. So, I will be using Alabama's basketball schedule from this year so we can have 31 games. Just so you don't get confused, we are playing football games against other football teams on a football field. So let's get started. So I'm going to be simulating every game that Alabama has on this schedule. And as you can see here, Northeastern and Wichita State don't have football teams, so we're just going to have to throw those games out. And as for the teams that do have football teams, they won't be any match for Alabama. So we can go ahead and simulate these games. And as you can see, Alabama blew everybody out, except Appalachian State. They had a pretty decent football team this year. They scored a lot on them, 51-24. But Alabama will cruise through these first 4 games. So on to the second half of the non-conference schedule, we have a couple more interesting games. And the one I think is really interesting is at UCF. If that were a real game, it'd be very interesting to watch. But let's simulate and see how the results could be. And Alabama wins by 23. UCF does put up a lot of points, but Alabama put up a lot more. So I'll go ahead and simulate the next 3 games, and Alabama doesn't have any trouble with Georgia State, Arizona, or Liberty, as expected because none of these teams are very good at all. But the next interesting game is Penn State at home, and we'll go ahead and simulate that. And Penn State does give Alabama their closest game of the year, but it still isn't very close. And the next game at Stephen F. Austin, Alabama goes kind of easy since it is an away game. You don't want to run up the score too much. I do know Alabama probably could put up 100 on Stephen F. Austin if they wanted to, but they decided to just put up 45. So Alabama makes it to conference play undefeated. And finally, we can go ahead and fill in some games that have already happened in real life. So anytime you see a score in yellow, you know that's a result from this season. And technically we did play at Ole Miss and not Ole Miss at home, but I think since we beat Ole Miss 62-7 on the road, I don't think it'd be any different in Tuscaloosa, so I'm going to go ahead and put it down as 62-7. So we can go ahead and simulate the Kentucky and Missouri game, and Alabama doesn't have any issues with either of these games. So Alabama starts the season out 16-0 as they get into the middle of their schedule. So Bama takes care of business at Baylor, but has a very close, scary game at Auburn. After Auburn's Hail Mary attempt falls just short and Alabama squeaks out a win in Jordan-Hare Stadium. And then the Tide head on to their toughest game yet against Georgia. But with a pumped up team in football stadium against Georgia, Alabama knocks off the Bulldogs 32-20. Alabama then takes a very, very easy road win at Vanderbilt, winning 45-7. But then, Alabama finds trouble. Alabama loses 29-28. After Mississippi State goes for 2 to win the game after scoring a touchdown with 13 seconds to go. And Mississippi State snaps a 12-game losing streak to Alabama. And Alabama falls to 21-1. So as we head to the final stretch of the season, we can go ahead and tack on 2 real games that happened against Auburn and at Arkansas. And for the first game back after the loss to Mississippi State, Alabama plays pissed and stomps a really good Florida team, beating them 38-14 at Alabama. And as I simulate the last 4 games, Alabama does not lose again. And Alabama will finish the season 28-1 and 17-1 in SEC games. So it looks like Alabama still is pretty darn good no matter how many games they play. So that's about it for the video. I thought it'd be really interesting to see what it would be like if Alabama played, or any other college football team played like 31 games. It's a shame that football's such a violent sport and we can't play more games, because I'd love to see, 30 games in football. But it just can't happen, so that's why I make the videos for you. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hey there. Make sure you follow me on Instagram for more Primetide Sports content. I'll post a lot of highlights, a lot of clips, a lot of fun facts about Alabama, and you're going to really like it. So follow me on Instagram at Primetide Sports.